Alright, hello everybody. So this video is going to be just a little bit of an overview as far as virtual reality working in Unreal Engine. Now, to kind of get started here, a few things that I wanted to talk about was just kind of first off your VR headset options in general. Um, yes, your two primary competitors are Oculus and Vive. Uh, Really, right now, actually, as of recording this, they are at neck, as far as wireless capabilities, development options, etc. So, a couple of things to point out, though. Question I often get is one better than the other? Not particularly. What I think it really comes down to when you're thinking about headsets is your development process. For example, I do have a Vive that I do use that I plug into the machine that does have the sensors and things like that. With this in mind, what that does is it allows me to do testing on the fly that I can actually test while I'm developing here. Some things I notice with folks is, for instance, like if we go over to the Oculus here, some folks might actually be kind of drawn into like the Quest or the Go. Um, I have tried both. They're great headsets. When I've talked to some folks who do develop for these, though, one of the biggest drawbacks for the all in ones where you are not plugged into the computer is you do, every time that you want to test your VR project, you have to go through the process of publish, then upload to the headset, then test on the headset. You find something that's broken, guess what? You're going in, you're fixing it, you're publishing, uploading to the headset. Now, having said that, on the flip side here, like if you go with the Rift S, or as far as the Vive is concerned, you have several options here as far as their different series, but the con to having a Vive Pro or the Rift S is you got to have the space for it. Yes, if you are going to do testing on the headset where yes, you will be in an environment, yes, you will be standing, yes, you will be moving around, you really do need to have a hefty amount of space available to be able to work with that. So it's kind of a give and take on how you want to work with them. Overall, just it's a personal preference. I started on Vive, I keep working in Vive. That's really, where I am on that. Mixed reality headsets. We do have several of these at CCAC. We actually do use the Dell mixed reality headsets. They are a great middle ground that maybe you're not sure, do I really want to be developing for VR? Do I, can I even handle VR? Is another good question. The mixed reality headsets are a great option and kind of a nice middle ground. So that's a little bit about the headsets. Now let's talk here just for a minute about, okay, I know that I want to make VR games in Unreal. What are some of my options as far as getting started? Some things to point out about Unreal. Number one is you actually have technically three options on how you can go about creating VR environments. The first is, instead of using a template, is actually starting with a blank file. Absolute, option here. With that, I'd like to point out a textbook that I used to use that we do have in the Innovation Lab, and this is Unreal Engine VR Cookbook. It makes a lot of assumptions. It assumes you're comfortable with Unreal. Now, having said that, number two, the book, as far as the blueprints are concerned, it's also dated by a couple of versions of Unreal. The core concepts are there. You will literally be building from scratch as far as headset references, hand references, being able to pick objects up. You're building everything from the ground up. When I've had students do that in the past, pretty much just getting one project done took us like the second half of the semester, and we were just neck deep in blueprints. So, was it cool? Yeah. Drawback though, it is very time intensive. Which brings me to a second option, which is, okay, why don't I just actually have Unreal make the VR environment for me and I'll build within it? Okay. Yes, technically Unreal, you do have what are called VR levels. This is not the VR template that I'm going to show you here at a later time, but what these VR levels were was the idea was that we were going to move into this era of developing video games where we would actually be in the VR environment and we would actually be placing the objects that way. It's a fun, nifty thing to play around with. Biggest drawback is you need a hefty, machine to handle it. Also, too, as far as from a design standpoint, it's just a really clunky design process. I guess for a pro, you look really cool doing it. So that brings me to the last option. This is the option I use the most, especially if I have to get off the ground quickly. We're going back to those templates. Unreal provides you with the option that you can go in and actually create a template, and in the template you have two options. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to bring up Unreal here and we'll take a look at those. So one thing here is, so I have made a VR template project here. One thing to point out is, when I bring up Unreal, another program you're going to want to have installed is Steam. Steam, especially with the Vive, it's pretty much plug and play as far as the headset is concerned. It'll detect the headset, it will make the connection between the engine to Steam to your Vive headset. So, absolutely excellent option. It does have a workaround for the Windows Mixed Reality. You just have to download a plugin for the Steam client, but it's the same thing again. You literally can just go in, you boot up Unreal, this will come up here, and then it'll just be plug and play. So just wanted to point that out to folks. So you have the template set up. Now, what you're actually seeing here in your main view window here is within the VR template folders, you actually have two maps that come pre-created for you. One is an HMD and the second is an HMD and motion controller. HMD stands for head mounted display. So it is asking you what type of gameplay would you like to have within the game environment here. For instance, just a head-mounted display here, you're kind of getting the general idea here. What you're missing is you do not have controllers to interact with the environment like you would with the motion controllers. You can, this is a great option for seated gameplay if you want to use like a space bar to have the person teleport around. Using specific keys on the keyboard for them to pick things up or interact with the world. You can make phenomenal games this way. Why is this an option? This is an option because a lot of headsets, actually you can literally just buy the headset. You don't need to buy the hand controllers. So, for instance, Windows Mixed Reality headsets. Not only do you buy the headset, but then you do have to turn around and buy the handheld controllers. They do not come included in the package. Likewise, actually, Vive a couple years back, whenever they released their Pro, got in a little bit of trouble because the wording on their website actually kind of made it sound like it was one whole package. People were ordering the package and they were finding out they didn't actually have the hand controllers. So, it's absolutely an option. So if you want seated gameplay where somebody doesn't need to worry about the controllers, or just, being in one place and maybe having more of like a VR experience, the HMD level with gamepad operations is a great option. Other side, this is the motion controllers. It pretty much comes standard. You have a directional pointer that will show you when you are looking around in the VR environment, but also you will have the hands in front of you that will sync up to the hand controllers that you can buy for VR. So the thing I like to point out to students though about this template specifically is this is just a starter map. This is just to show you, hey, this is what is in this template. What you actually want to do is you want to come down here into your content browser. And if you go under the Virtual Reality BP folder and into the maps here, you will actually see 3 different maps here. What you're seeing right here right now in your viewport is this startup map. From there, each of what these are talking about here, either the head-mounted or the gamepad, those are both down here. Now, normally what I like to do is I'll actually right-click on one of the items here and I will do a, maybe duplicate. So maybe I will call this Miss E HMD Loco map. That way I still have the original that's holding all of my blueprints for me and all of my references. And I'm not actually editing that, and instead what I'm working on is this new copy that I made. So I'll go ahead and double click this. I'm going to tell it don't go ahead and actually we'll save the selected. And then here is your VR template. You can actually see already the camera is in place as far as the spawn is concerned. And you would be able to start deleting, here you have those walls again that they like to make that little level for you. But you can start deleting and resetting up as far as the overall design of the template is concerned. And just to show you real quickly here, I don't have my headset set up right now, I'll show you the motion controller one as well. So what you have here is you just have, standard moving around, but then if I go into motion controller, double click that one thing that's nice is this level comes pre-set up with several objects that a player can practice with as far as interacting and working with the cube and stuff like that. One thing that I've had in the past that students can do that if you are interested, first off, it has the blueprint applied to it already, but also number 2, as far as its static mesh is concerned, you can actually come in and change this out here. So you could have a different object that you might want a user to pick up and interact with. So again, you kind of have all of that groundwork already laid out for you that you get to work with here. So this is just kind of the starting point. Now, lastly, as far as the maps that are included here, you can, once you get more comfortable with these, normally, yes, if I'm working on a project, this starter map, the startup map, I normally delete this. I don't need it. Also, if you know for certain you are only going to do like a head-mounted display where you're playing on the keyboard, I can also technically get rid of like the motion controller map. Or if I'm doing a motion controller game where I know the user is going to have access to hand controllers, you can get rid of the HMD locomotion map as well. So that's kind of just a brief overview as far as working with the different maps that Unreal provides you for VR.